Hi everyone, welcome to Testkube's 1.14 release video. We are very excited to share all of the new updates and improvements that Testkube has seen over our latest release. I am joined by David and Vlad, Testkube engineers, and my name is Ale. I am developer advocate at Testkube. So first of all, thank you so much for joining and for following along. We hope that these improvements really put your testing forward. If you're new here, TestKube is a Kubernetes native testing framework for testers and developers that helps you orchestrate, execute, and display your tests and test results for your apps that are running in Kubernetes. So we're going to start talking about the new features that are included in the 1.14 release, and I'm going to hand this over to Vlad.
Hello everyone, my name is Vlad and I'm a backend software engineer in Testkube, and I'm going to tell and show today a few new features that we implemented in 1.14, and I will start with the first feature. Let me share my screen then. Okay. Entire screen. Sorry. Share entire screen. And the first feature I'm going to tell about is a new executor that we introduced in 1.14. And I would like to add that our current approach is to allow users to create their own executors. And because originally we created pre-built executors here in Testkube, and we understood at some point that we are pretty much limited with our developer capacity, and people will have much more needs that we can satisfy here in Testkube. So we decided to implement a new feature that we introduced it several months ago called container executors, and allow people to create executors themselves. So this is already in production for many months, but what we did additionally this month, we decided to create some shared folders in Testkube API repositories that will contain these container executor definitions. And instead of implementing some pre-built executors, we just decided to prepare some basic artifacts that can be used to build and run these container executors on your site. So we don't provide already Docker images in this case. We just provide a definition of these Docker files, as you can see here, because, for example, in case of Python, you understand that Python is a whole separate universe, and it contains a lot of different libraries, different Python versions. So in our case, we decided to provide you an example of such Python-based executor. We decided to use Pytest framework for this. So the Docker file contains some definition of basic libraries, and including this Pytest library itself. We provided a description of this container executor that can be applied into your Kubernetes cluster, as well as example of these tests and definition of this test. So you are free to just build this container executor, put into your image repository, and then create tests and executor in your Kubernetes cluster, and run these tests using this example. So it's, as I said, it's still open source. It's fully under your management. You can add additional libraries, and in this case, you will be able to run a Python test for. And the same thing for the other executors that we call kubenet, that allows you to test your Kubernetes cluster for deprecated Kubernetes API. Again, we provide just definition of this executor. You can install and run it on your Kubernetes cluster. You can adjust it whatever you need for this executor. So we are open to additional contribution to this folder. Feel free to provide your own definition of container executors. We will be happy to share it with other users who might need some interesting or specific executors that we don't have right now in Testkube. So yeah, the whole idea, as I said, to allow users to create the definition of their executors themselves and share them with other users. And then the users can adjust them to their particular needs with necessary libraries, versions, etc., etc. So that's, yeah, I would say the first feature, and it's first general improvement that we did in this 1.14. And the next one that I'm going to speak about is, I would say, a major improvement in current Testkube features that we have. It's about creating additional CRDs type that we didn't have before. And the problem was that in order to run tests right now, you had to use API call. And this is CLI command, which was not always convenient for people who like to use GitOps approach and use tools like Argo CD or Flux, and just to give responsibility for running tests also to these tools rather than call the commands or call API methods to start the test. So we introduced new CRD types in Testkube. One of them is called test execution CRD, and the other one, similar one, is test suite execution CRD. So applying or creating the first one, you will be able to run the tests that you need, and applying or creating the second one, you can start the execution of the test suite that is connected to this test suite execution CRD. So let me show how this test suite execution looks like. So I will share the definition that I have on my computer. It's not very simple. In fact, this is an example of test execution CRD. So the basic thing is the test that should be run with this test execution CRD is created. So you can see that it's specification and some additional parameters of the test executions that similar to what we have usually for the tests themselves. So in this case, we will run just a test called K6 executor smoke, and we'll create additional variables for this test. So let me show how it works. And I will run a few commands in this case. So first of all, I will show that we don't have any test execution in the cluster. It should be empty. And you can see that it's really empty. And then I will apply this definition. It means that tests should start running after these. And yeah, I can show you that what running tests we have right now. And as you can see, yeah, we don't have running tests, so I will create these. Just applying the definition CRD. Okay, so definition was, as you can see, test execution was created. If I check running test right now, you will see that we have, it's this test already completed very fast. Yeah, but yeah, you can see. The test was executed, and if I check description of this test execution CRD, you will see the result of this test execution. So yeah, this is the whole number of fields describing our test execution results. You can see the duration was just 6 seconds. It's passed. You can see the labels that we use. We see the number of these the start time and so on, end time and all other parameters. So it's also could be quite convenient because this information right now is stored in CRD status, and the current organization of Testkube is that we store all the execution results in database in MongoDB, because etcd is not very convenient for store these multiple and actually temporable results. So, but in this case, it's quite useful. If you need to have it for some particular test execution, you can see the all test-related execution fields in this CRD. And you can do the same for the test suite as well. Instead of targeting for test, you can create the test suite execution CRD, and applying, creating or updating such CRDs, you can also run test suite. And if you have them, you can store this CRD in your Git repo. And so for example, at the first step, you will create all the tests you need, and then second step, you will synchronize the test execution CRD, and they will run the tests that you need to run in your Kubernetes cluster. This feature will allow Testkube to be more GitOps compliant, and technically right now you can do all the things without directly calling API or running CLI command. You can just use your Git repository and store both the test definition there as well as test execution CRD that will be responsible for launching these tests. So this is the second feature that I wanted to tell you about. And the next one on my slide is pre-run and post-run phases for container executor. So it's also an important topic, and I will tell a few words about it. So the thing is that a couple of months ago, we implemented the pre-run and post-run scripts for our pre-built executors. So this feature is very useful when you need to prepare environment, or when you need to shut down something properly when you complete your tests. So, but this feature was only supported for the pre-built executors that we have in Testkube. And as I said before, one of our goals is to allow users to be able to create executors themselves and manage themselves what they are running in Testkube. So this is, again, one more step in this destination. We decided to provide the feature of pre-run and post-run script for container executor. And the problem was with this feature is that in case of container executor, the user has a full control of the image, and Testkube itself does not have any control. It does not know the image content because it's kind of closed for Testkube, so we cannot manage this image the same way we did it for our pre-built executors. So in order to bypass this issue, we decided to dynamically analyze the user Docker image that is used for container executors, because technically it can be any image. We need to find the definition of the entry point that this image contains. So we analyze the metadata of this Docker image, and what we do, we actually dynamically create the new entry point when we execute this image. So if you just decided to have I don't know, only pre-run script, we will check the definition of entry point in your Docker image, and will use it as well as add it together with pre-run script in order to run them together. Or if you provide additional command or arguments, we will just replace default entry point with your new command or arguments you have for these container executors. So from this point of view, user does not need to worry about any complexity related to the definition of the entry points for the container executors. We will do this on Testkube sites, and technically the CRD for container executor-based test or for pre-built executor test is not different from this point of view. You can still use dumb shell script command for these pre-run or post-run scripts, and we will automatically do everything for you. So it will work very similarly to the pre-built executors from this point of view. And yeah, this is, I guess, will be really helpful for user who needs to use their own executors and needs still to be able to run pre-run or post-run scripts, because they can allow you to customize additionally your test environment. And the next feature, this is also was requested by our users, is about enhancement for the test triggers that was also introduced several months ago. And we continue to add some small features or enhancement for this feature almost every release. And the one I'm going to tell about is to support new additional conditions that will be used when the Testkube decide to start the test when some event happens in Kubernetes cluster. So probably it's better to show again on my screen, and I will show how this test trigger looks like. In order to implement it, we introduced additional new section. It's called prop specification. And the idea behind it is to work similar to what we have in Kubernetes itself. This is a health check. And when event is triggered in Kubernetes cluster, we receive some notification about this event. And besides this, we also checking if the prop specification is valid or not. So you can see in my example, we have two props. It's, as I said, it's very similar to the health check for Kubernetes pod. And we just check, in this case, some internal service that it's healthy. And we also check that the external service is also healthy. So that's if these two props are valid, then the test will be triggered. So yeah, it can be useful, especially when your test is dependent from a number of services. And as I said, in this example, it can be even external services, or it can be a few internal services if you need them to work healthy and up and running, because in some cases, when you create cluster from scratch, it will take some time to run these services. So this way you can check multiple conditions. And let me show how this works, because the idea is that when this event happens, we will check that this server is available and this internal Kubernetes services is also available. And again, a quick example for this. So let me clear my screen and again run a few comments. let's check what the triggers we have right now in our current cluster. And we have one cluster that, in fact, it's will trigger the tests when event happen. It will not check the props itself. It's the trigger without the props, and I will create the one that will contain some props. So I will apply the one that I just showed to you. And yeah, before I will show that I didn't have test running right now. And let me apply the definition of this test trigger with props. So it was created, and I will create a new deployment. Now, because this test trigger will trigger it by deployment creation. So deployment is created. We can check that we have deployments in default namespace. Yes, we have one more in Nginx that this deployment is responsible. And let me check the executions again. We should have kind of additional one. Yeah, just to complete it. One of them was triggered by the test trigger without deployment, and one of them was triggered by the test trigger with prop specification. We can check which one was triggered by which one. So I'm entering, and let's check this one. And we can see that this execution was triggered by our test trigger props. So yeah, it means that the condition was passed, and both external and internal sites were available. So this is how conditions prop for test trigger works. And the next feature that I want to show is about additional labels for pods and job. So again, feature was requested by our users. And the idea behind this small feature is that many users use some monitoring tools for checking the state of the test pod and jobs. And they asked us to add additional labels that, in fact, are defined in the test itself. So they need to apply them for the pods and jobs responsible for running this test in order to see them in their dashboards. So I will show how it works. Again, let me just run some tests. And yeah, first I will show the definition of the test that we have. And this is the test that we have right now. It has 3 labels, as you can see: core test, executor, test type. These 2 labels usually created automatically when you create the tests in Testkube CLI and API. And then we can run the test and check the pod labels that we will have. So I started the test. So let's see that the pods that are running right now. And yeah, you can see that, yeah, I will check this pod. Give capital, describe. Pod. And let's check the labels that we have for this pod. As you can see that we have, again, core test, executor, and test type. And yeah, one of the labels was created by Kubernetes for job, and one we created additionally when we run the test. So that's, yeah, you can see that the labels from the test was used when we start the pod also. So yeah, as I said, this switch is useful for monitoring the execution of tests in your Kubernetes cluster. The last feature that I'm going to speak about is additional improvements for the webhook that we have right now. And again, I will just give a brief description of this task because many users use some private information when they submit the webhooks. I mean, API key, passwords, usernames, etc., etc. So before this feature, it was not possible to read this information dynamically, and you need to always provide this information in some form is in your webhook. So it was not convenient for the users, and the request was about allowing webhooks reading some environment variables from Testkube API server. So in this case, when the user installs Testkube, he can define some secrets with some API keys or passwords for Testkube API server, and will be able to read the values of these environment variables. And if you need to have integration with some party software, I don't know, Datadog or whatever, you can create the environment variable with Datadog API key for Testkube API server during the installation, and webhook will use this variable in order to send request to Datadog using Testkube webhooks. So I will show how it works also, small demo from me. So let's check existing webhooks that we have. Again, let me clear my screen first. And yeah, I don't have any webhook, so I will create one more. It's very simple one. And it in this webhook, yeah, it will be triggered when the test started. The result will be posted to some website that I will show for them. And what I will do in this payload template, I will just take some installation environment variable that we have right now during Testkube installation. And as I said, technically it can be any environment from Testkube API server that you want to use. So let me create then this webhook. So just create it and run the test. So the test was started, and let's check my. You can see that this event was just submitted. And you can see that it contains the value that was taken from the environment variable from Testkube API server. So that's how it works. As I said, you can define your own set of environment variables that you want to use in your webhook, and yeah, submit this value to some third-party additional monitoring tools. So I guess that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm David. I'm front-end engineer in Testkube. So basically, we are putting a lot of efforts into our dashboard, especially for some time this year already, because it's getting more and more interest. These are both improvements for the experience of existing features as well as new features, because it's pretty convenient way to just manage the Testkube installation, especially when it comes to analyzing the results. So I'd like to introduce you to some of the features that we have implemented in the latest release. Okay, so first thing I'd like to introduce you to is that we have improved our mobile design. So basically, the whole interface of Testkube is now easily accessible on mobile devices. When you will have an issue that you'd like to just check shortly, it should be possible to check even on some poor small device, instead of just getting the full computer. That appears to work for everything that is right now in the Testkube, and we keep having that accessible as well when it comes to new features. As Vlad has mentioned, we get pre-run and post-run supported now in the Testkube system for container executors. We put that configuration as well on the UI, so now you should be able to easily manage that too from the dashboard. From features that's worth to mention is that we have added debugging screen. When you come to settings, you will see all the information about the installation of the Testkube in your environment. So that information will be very helpful anytime you'd like to check whether the feature is not working because it's not yet available, or you'd like to report a bug that we'd like to handle for you. One of nice big features we had lately too is webhooks configuration. Basically, the webhooks are living in Testkube already for a long time, yet we didn't have yet the dashboard to manage all of them. Now it's easily possible to both manage existing webhooks as well as just adding a new one. So I could add now just a simple webhook that will react to any started test. Right now it didn't receive any data, but when I'll start any kind of test, it will just send me information about that. Along with all the details. Of course, we allow configuring everything that you will need, both when it comes to the conditions as well as payload. So you can use the environment variables just as Vlad has shown a moment ago. The last nice thing that I'd like to show you in this demo is that we have introduced the user interface and the dashboard to manage parallel tests. Parallel tests have been introduced in 1.13, I think. But now we also have user-friendly interface in the dashboard. So you may easily add tests that are that should either run in parallel to themselves, along with all the delays and each step. When you'll run that test, you see all the information about consecutive steps that have been started. and you may easily see what actually is running right now and what will break or succeed.
Awesome. That's it for 1.14 release. Thank you, Vlad. Thank you, David. Thank you for watching. Remember that Testkube lets you run any type of test for your apps in Kubernetes. Don't forget to try it out. Check us out at testkube.io. And if you have more feature requests or any comments for our team of engineers, we're waiting for you up in our Discord. We also have frequently asked questions section up on testkube.io/knowledge base. So make sure to check all that out. Our release notes will be linked down below, and have a great day. Thank you.